7 o'clock in the evening in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a pretty full agenda this evening, and we're going to start with a budget update from our Finance Director, Matt Wolf, who I hope will be bringing some good news for the third quarter of 2020 and into the winter. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I am bringing some good news tonight. And since 2020 has just been kind of an odd year, I thought it'd be good to have a third quarter update for you.
Go ahead and speak into the mic. It might be a little bit, actually, if you wanted to, you could probably. Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah. You're well distanced.
No, it's not. The city uses a priority-based budgeting model, and tonight we're at step number 7, monitoring results. An overview of tonight's presentation is first, we're going to go over the sales tax and use tax update. Then we're going to go on general fund budget performance and then next steps. The good news is Gardner continues kind of to defy what expectations are. Most areas around us are experiencing a loss in sales tax. Gardner City sales tax is up 7.4% over last year. Our portion of the county sales tax is down 3.2%. Use tax is up an astonishing 20.7%, and then our portion of county use tax is up 18.1%. Total general fund sales and use tax is up 6.3%, or $240,000 over 2019. When we compare this to the 2020 budget estimate, we're about $180,000 ahead as of the third quarter. This revenue stream will have the most significant impact on the general fund balance. The other general fund revenues aggregated are on track to add another $30,000 or so for a total of about $210,000 as a projected surplus. Regarding budget performance, essentially how are we performing on our budget? If you remember, during the budget process, we revised our 2020 budget and cut about $1.2 million in expenditures. As of September 30th, 75% of the year had transpired, and our general fund spending is exactly at 75%, so we're right on target. The one thing I would want to remind you is the budget is essentially a spending plan, and there are some things that pop up throughout the year that are unplanned for expenditures. So expenditures related to the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant, those are not planned, so they'll kind of inflate our expenditures, but we're not worried about our fund balance because we have offsetting grant revenues to offset it. These were our projections for fund balance when we did the budget. Essentially, 2020 was supposed to end at 32%, 21, 27%, and 22 at 24%. If we keep the entire projected surplus for fund balance, it would increase it between 1 to 2%. And the next steps are, we'd like to wait for the year-end results to make sure the surplus materializes as we anticipate. And in the meantime, departments will work with the city manager to consider needs throughout the community, and then we'll discuss and kind of balance those needs versus our target fund balance, and then come to council with options for how we might adjust the 2021 budget.
Okay.
Any questions?
Anyone on the dais?
I do.
Yes, yes.
Matthew, thank you for that presentation. I'm just curious, what drove the sales tax of 7.4%?
I believe it was the Main Street Marketplace project, the new Price Chopper opening. During that time, we saw a huge increase in our sales tax.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, what about the use tax? I had a question about use taxes and what.
We anticipated that going up somewhat just because a lot of people are still working from home, and that's essentially online sales. So sometimes people, if they don't get charged sales tax right away, then they report it later on as a use tax. So we knew it was going to go up, but we were kind of astonished by how much it's gone up.
Sure. That would also explain why the county's tax has also gone up as
Correct.
Part of that as well. online sales.
Mhm.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Matt. Indeed, good news. Thank you. We'll move on to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you wish to come forward, there are only a couple of ground rules. First of all, there's a 5-minute time clock on the left-hand side of the room as you look towards us, on the right side as we look out. Please keep your comments under 5 minutes. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the mic is open. State your name and address when you come forward and for the record, and you'll be free to speak. Seeing no one coming forward, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Number 11?
Number 11, okay. Anything else? Any other removals? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda items 1 through 10 and 12 and 13.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 10, 12, and 13. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Consent agenda items 1 through 10 and 12 and 13 pass. Consent agenda item number 11, consider authorizing the execution of agreement with Progressive Electronics, Inc. for the purchase and installation of upgrades to the AV system in the Gardner City Council chambers. Councilman Gregorczyk, what do you have for questions?
Jim, when was the CARES available compared to this, this project?
So the CARES Act funding originally, when it was released and allocations were made to the cities was approximately a month ago when we found out how much we were going to get and what some of the parameters were. As we went on and other jurisdictions were submitting for things that were outside of our original thought process, we began exploring those. The problem was with timing and rushing that is everybody was doing the same thing at the same time. So I assigned Amy Nasta to this project so we didn't fall too far behind. And that's what the end result was, is just to get the 3 bids and get them here so that we could get a guarantee from the vendor that it could be done on time because it has to be expended by December 30th. And that's why the process played out like it did.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions for City Administrator Pruitt? Obviously, this is something that's needed for our chambers, especially since we are doing much more virtual because of coronavirus. So this falls right in the wheelhouse of CARES Act funding. All right. No other questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 11.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton, that we authorize the city administrator to execute an agreement with Progressive Electronics for the purchase and installation of upgrades to the AV system in the Gardner City Council chambers. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 11 passes. Move on to the planning and zoning consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the planning and zoning consent agenda?
Number 2?
Number 2. All right, I'll entertain a motion on planning and zoning consent agenda item number 1.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Winters, that we approve planning and zoning consent agenda item number 1. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Consent agenda, planning and zoning consent agenda item number 1 passes. Planning and zoning consent agenda item number 2, consider accepting dedication of right-of-way easements for the final plat of FP 20-08 for Regency West First Plat. Councilmember Gregorczyk.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for Jim again. I don't see Johnson County Fire Department in the audience. I just wanted to ensure that the fire department has enough room for their ladder truck or whatever they need to get in and get out of this new development.
Yeah, we collaborated with them on some options. We first looked to the south, to 188th Street, and that wasn't available to us. So they agreed to let us explore I guess it's a cut through at the back of the Orscheln's lot with a Knox box. And they're okay with that as the secondary entrance.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? If If not, I'll entertain a motion on
So moved.
planning. Please allow me to,
Oops, go
please
ahead.
allow me to make the motion first, sir. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion on the planning and zoning consent agenda item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton, that we accept the dedication of right-of-way and easements for final plat FP-20-08 for Regency West first plat. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Planning and zoning consent agenda item number 2 passes, my goodness. Committee recommendations. Committee recommendation item number 1, consider approving an ordinance amending the preliminary development plan PDP-20-04 for Regency West. Case, good evening, sir.
And good evening to you guys too, and gal. This is a proposal for a revised preliminary development plan for a daycare center, a commercial pad site, and a 196-unit Gardner apartment complex. The proposal was originally submitted and approved back in 2004, and then revised in 2015. The plan before you tonight is very similar to the previously approved 2015 plan, with the addition of a daycare and 54 more apartment units. The applicant presented their proposal at the September 22nd Plan Commission meeting and was sent to the governing body with a 7-0 favorable recommendation with 3 conditions as outlined in the council agenda form. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 1? Seeing none, any questions for Bob or members of the planning staff?
I'm excited.
It'll be nice to start that project. All right, I'll entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 1.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Gregorczyk, that we accept the recommendation of the planning commission and approve ordinance number 2677, an ordinance revising the improved preliminary development plan PDP-20-04 for certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 18 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes. Ordinance 2677 passes. Moving on to committee recommendation item number 2. Consider approving a conditional use permit for Regency West for a daycare center. Mr. Case. Got to stay close to that mic.
Yeah, tonight I might have to, guys. This application is for a conditional use permit for an 11,500 square foot daycare center. The application was heard before the September 22nd Plan Commission, where it was recommended to be sent on to the governing body with a 7-0 favorable recommendation. I'm going to go ahead and read the conditions because the staff, we added a third one. First condition, this conditional use permit request shall not be approved prior to the approval of the preliminary development plan. 2, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicants shall submit copies of all required state and of Kansas permits and licenses. And the third is a recommendation from the staff. This conditional use permit is a permanent permit issued to the current owner of the property or / initial daycare provider. Any future change of ownership management of the daycare must be reported to the city and may require the issuance of a new CUP following the applicable CUP regulations / process at that time. Failure to follow up all applicable local, state, and federal regulations shall be grounds for reconsideration of the CUP and possible revocation of the permit.
Great, thank you very much, Bob. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 2? Seeing none, any questions on the CUP? Yes, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one question. The second conditional item that you listed, State of Kansas permits and license, is that specific to daycare? Those licenses that they need? Okay.
All right. Yes.
Yes, they are.
Thank Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for making it official, Bob.
Yes, yes. Well, he knows that we're watching.
I know,
so
right?
That's good.
Mr. Mayor, I may interject before you take
Absolutely.
a motion. The other part of this is because the staff is making a third recommendation here, or a third condition as part of the recommendation, this would be a situation where if a motion is considered to pass with these three conditions,
Supermajority.
it would take the 2/3 majority vote to pass that.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Director Knopf. I appreciate that clarification. Yes, this will require a 2/3 supermajority for passage, but I don't think that's going to be an issue here. All right,
Now that I know.
entertain a motion on ordinance number 2678.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance number 2678, an ordinance approving conditional use permits on certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, CUP-20-01, as recommended by the Planning Commission with the additional condition recommended by staff as outlined. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gudersick,
Yes.
Ordinance 2678 passes with a supermajority. Thank you very much, Bob. All right, committee recommendation item number 3. Oh, it's you again. Consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from R2 two-family MP Mobile Home Park and C3 commercial districts to MP Mobile Home Park District. Consider approval for the associated preliminary development plan for the Lakes of Conestoga, 20-acre, 95-unit manufactured mobile home community located at the southeast corner of Santa Fe Street and Conestoga Drive. Bob, welcome
Hey,
back.
thank you. We've been pretty busy here lately.
Yes.
This is a proposal for rezoning from R2 two-family, MP Mobile Home Park, and C3 commercial districts to MP Mobile Home Park District, and associated preliminary development plan for a 20-acre, 95-unit mobile home park. The proposal was originally submitted and approved back in 2004, then, oh, wait a minute. Uh-oh. Messed up here. The site is located at the southeast corner of East Santa Fe Street and Conestoga Drive. The site is currently vacant and surrounded on the south and east by a mobile home park use, and to the north is commercial. The applicant requested 3 deviations from the base district standards. These deviations included deviations from the requirement to have 15% open space, standard open space system, and 50 feet buffer from a public street. The Plan Commission recommended approval of the deviations as requested. This property is also within the New Century Air Center impact area and will require review by the Johnson County Airport Board and Board of County Commissioners. The applicant presented their proposal at the September 22nd Plan Commission meeting and was sent to the governing body with a 7-0 favorable recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 3?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Excuse me, my name is Curtis Holland. I'm the attorney for the proposed developer of the project. I am an attorney with the Polsonelli Law Firm. And here also with me is Jed Clausen with Phelps Engineering, who is our civil engineer. We also have, I think, participating by Zoom, several members of Green Court Partners, the proposed developer. They're here to answer any questions if you have any. We're here to support the application. Green Court is relatively new to the community. They have purchased the adjoining mobile home community next door, Conestoga. This would be an extension of that. They purchased that property back in 2018. Since then, they've invested approximately $2 million into their community in terms of a clubhouse, playground, dog park, and so forth. They've really done a great job with it. We have a statement from some of the police that have patrolled the community and speak very favorably of it. And we're here really to answer any questions if you have any. We're happy. Our Green Court's very happy to be a member of the community, and they're looking forward to investing more into the community here. And so with that, I would close and take any questions if you have any, but we're really just here to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else coming forward? With no one else coming forward, questions for the developer or for planning staff on this? Yes, Councilman.
Jim, I don't know if you'd be the one to answer this or who, but I've got 3 questions, or I have 3 questions. The first one is the storm shelter large enough to accommodate the new community?
Bob, we actually looked into this, and storm shelters are not required. So I'm not sure about the capacity. Bob, do you know what that is? Judd?
Judd Clausen with Phelps Engineering. The storm shelter hasn't been final designed yet. That's one of the items that we're adding as a amenity to the project. We'll get into that sizing, with the final development plans as such, but we felt it was important to provide, that kind of a facility for the use of the residents. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but we wanted to at least have that amenity on the project.
And I appreciate your response. My question really derives from a couple of years ago. I received several phone calls about a lack of space, and this, I believe, predates your purchaser. And at that time, they were instructed, and Jim can probably correct me if I'm wrong, were instructed to go to the old police station on Main Street here in Gardner. Yeah. And so when this came up, that just popped into my head, so that's the reason for my question.
And I think at that time, it was not actually the capacity, it was that it was locked at the time.
I believe you're right. Yeah. Thank you, Jim. My second question is more on the city side. And again, thank you, sir. Based on this addition to Conestoga, which I think is fabulous, and I do like your amenities that you've added, i.e. a dog park, I think we, the city, could do something similar. But back to my point, will Santa Fe be widened?
That is not part of this development. If it's required or needed in the future, that's a possibility. We did ask for additional road right-of-way on the northwest corner of this development to allow for that road to go in the future if it's needed.
Okay, thank you. And that last question, and I appreciate your patience, Mayor. Will sidewalks be added parallel to Santa Fe? I know we talked about this around a different development there on the corner, the strip mall where the construction guys are, but will we be able to finally maybe continuously connect a sidewalk to serve that same community?
The sidewalk will be in front of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, the new development, but there's no additional sidewalk being required at this time.
So no additional sidewalk between the north side of the development and the south side of Santa Fe? Or city sidewalk?
North side of the development, south.
The old development, the old
No,
portion.
The existing.
No, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Because it's all grandfathered in, so.
Yeah, I'm talking about the new piece, gentlemen.
The new piece should have.
The new piece does have a sidewalk.
Yes.
All
Yes,
new
they-
development should have sidewalk.
Right, yeah, the new does have sidewalk.
Okay, well, I just maybe.
But there's no connectivity to the east.
Right, that was my,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
That's it, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, with that, I will entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 3.
So moved. Second?
Motion Melton, second Dvorak, that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve ordinance number 2679, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner. City Clerk, will you please call the roll? And just to clarify, I am to be included on this vote, correct? Okay.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Dvorak,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Mayor Shute.
Yes. Ordinance 2679 passes. Moving on to committee recommendation item number 4, consider approving a conditional use permit for the Lakes at Conestoga for a manufactured mobile home park. It's just housekeeping, right, Bob?
Yes, sir. This application is for a conditional use permit for, again, 20-acre, 95-unit mobile home park to be located at the southeast corner of Santa Fe Street and Conestoga Drive. The Plan Commission heard this petition at their September 22nd meeting and recommends sending it to the governing body with a 7-0 favorable vote with the following conditions. Condition 1, this conditional use permit shall not be approved prior to the approval of the preliminary development plan and associated rezoning. And we also added an additional staff recommendation onto this with the help of the petitioner's legal counsel. This conditional use permit is a permanent permit issued to the current owner, Green Court Acquisitions 4 LLC, its affiliate and/or lender. Any change of ownership of title to the real property must be reported to the city and shall require the issuance of a new CUP following the applicable CUP regulations / process at that time. Failure to follow all applicable local, state, and federal regulations applicable to the CUP shall be grounds for reconsideration of the CUP and possible revocation of the permit.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and add to Bob's report just briefly. That wording is slightly changed to the wording that was in your packet. That's because we had continued discussions with the applicant representative, the attorney representing them, as well as our legal counsel. So this new language is slightly different than what you have in your packet, but we found this to be acceptable.
Okay, all right. And both legal counsels have looked at this, both our city attorney and legal counsel for the applicant, and they have both signed off, correct? Okay.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 4? Seeing none, any questions for staff? All right, I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 2680.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Gorsick, that we adopt ordinance number 2680, an ordinance approving the conditional use permit on certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, CUP-20-202, as recommended by the Planning Commission, with the additional condition recommended by staff as outlined. Again, this will take a 2/3 majority to move forward. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorsik?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Ordinance 2680 passes with a supermajority. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate it. Now you can sit down and listen to the rest of the meeting. Let me see. Committee recommendation item number 5. Consider authorizing the execution of a contract for the Kill Creek wastewater. I don't know what WRRF is, but that's digester cleanout project. Jeff Lemire. Can you tell me what WRRF is so that I think it's wastewater retention facility,
Water
right?
Resource Recovery Facility.
Resource recovery.
You had a water in there.
Mayor, Council,
Yes.
we're here before you for the award of the digester cleanout project number WW1808 to Senegirl Central LLC for $123,930.27. The digester equipment has been in use since the inception of the plant, and this would be the first time that these facilities and equipment are taken completely out of service for maintenance. And that's all I have.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 5? Seeing none, any questions from council for staff on this? All right, I'll entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 5.
Second.
Motion Gorsick, second Baldwin, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Senegirl Central LLC for the Kill Creek wastewater resource recovery facility digester cleanout project in the amount not to exceed $123,930.27. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Committee recommendation item number 5 passes. There's no old business. New business item number 1, consider the appointment of the city prosecutor. And this is my item. So the court manager of the court clerks, Amy Foster, was here with me, and we interviewed several candidates. Actually, we interviewed 3 candidates from a pool of a significant large size for this replacement. Chris Mann has been a very good prosecutor for our community. Has decided to move on. So we had 3 interviews, and we both agreed to bring forward to the council Adam Shingren to fill the position of city prosecutor effective November 1st. Councilor Shingren is a very good legal mind. I think you guys have seen his background and his expertise. He has worked in both sides, both in the federal prosecutor's office as well as within the defense attorneys and in private practice. So he's seen both sides of the fence, which I think is a very good thing to have for a prosecutor for a municipal court. So with that being said, do you have any questions on this appointment? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Winters, that we appoint Adam Shingren to the position of city prosecutor effective November 1st, 2020. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 1 passes. Thank you, Amy, for all your work on that. New business item number 2.
We understand how difficult it can be working with him, so thank you.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. Consider adopting an ordinance regulating traffic upon the streets, alleys, and highways of the city of Gardner, Kansas, incorporating by reference the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas City's edition 2020. Amy.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for that appointment as well. Glad to fill the seat. So on this agenda item, we do this every year. So I'm before you to ask for your consideration in adopting an ordinance to incorporate the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas City's edition of 2020 with certain deletions, omissions, changes, and additions that we include in our ordinance. This year, there was very few changes to the standard traffic ordinance. They actually, due to the coronavirus and their limited session, they actually cleared it very quickly, but they did remove a piece in 2018 that we did not adopt, and so we're coming back to see about getting that put in. We are asking for consideration to add the conviction of a third DUI. Currently, we actually kick a third DUI over to the county to district court to charge as a felony. We are seeing them kick some of those back. Some of them because they're over 10 years, or the other cases haven't been prosecuted yet. And so for us to be able to see them as a third DUI, we're asking you to put this piece in that we could charge them as a third DUI misdemeanor. The conviction of the violation of the section, with what the penalty would be, we actually took that from previous state statute. So that way it's consistent across the board for the state of Kansas. Other routine changes that we always include each year are actually any kind of reflection to 2020. So we're changing the year from 2018 to 2020. And this has been reviewed. And so we would just ask that we pass that effective with the publication of the ordinance.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. A public comment on new business item number 2. Seeing none, any questions for Amy or other staff on this?
Thank you, Mayor. So I agree with where we're going. The question I have, and I'm not a lawyer, but is it a good idea to have this a misdemeanor as a third DUI versus a felony?
So, we talked about, and I think with the prosecutor, we worked on language that we were comfortable with in terms of a third DUI. If the DA isn't going to pick it up as a third DUI for a felony, there's probably an underlying issue with that conviction, or he he or she has concerns about getting the felony DUI. So I think this allows us to come back to municipal court if we feel the prosecution would still be appropriate and handle it in that manner.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So just to clarify, is this basically a stopgap, so if it comes back to the city, we'll still send it to the county to prosecute as a felony, but if he chooses to kick it back, we've actually got a recourse anyway, so we can charge them or?
That's correct.
That is
Okay.
correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
So Amy, you mentioned continuity with the rest of the state. So how many other places is your third DUI a felony or a misdemeanor, depending on how the day's going?
And so it's not how the day's going. It's actually based on all third DUIs are submitted to the district court for felony charges. So when our officers write a DUI citation, the courts actually go back, run a history, and determine what conviction this would be. Anything that is a 3 and above, we kick to the district courts. Sometimes the district court, we have seen recently where they will push them back down based on years of the DUI cases that we see on the record, or that those cases are still pending. An individual may still be on diversion, they may still have an upcoming trial, and so they haven't actually been found guilty on the third case. So in those cases, they kick them back down to us, and we have to determine if we're going to go ahead and charge the DUI or if it's dismissed. And so if we charge it as a DUI, it's going as a standard DUI conviction. So it may be the same penalty as the second DUI or the first, depending on what their record shows. So every third DUI is going to district court. If they kick it back down to us, then we would try it as a third DUI misdemeanor. And it was in the state statute allowing for us to do that, and they actually removed it.
Yep.
And now they're asking us to go in and pass it as an ordinance if we wanted. So the majority of municipalities has added it.
And this isn't the only area where if the DA doesn't feel like a crime rises to the level of state charges, and like with harassment or stalking, if it doesn't rise to their level, we have no corresponding municipal charge to charge them with. So it's just one of those gaps we're trying to fill. It doesn't preclude the state from charging a third DUI. This just gives us the option instead of no charges at all.
Correct.
So just for clarification, you mentioned that in the situation when the district court is unable to determine if it's the third, or because there's a pending second, are we gonna be able to prosecute it until that second isn't resolved, or is resolved?
What we consider a third misdemeanor may look different to what they're considering as a third felony. And so our prosecutor would make that determination. So when it gets kicked back down, they will be able to go through the case file and determine how they want to then charge it.
And the DA would decline prosecution before we would file charges. They're not concurrent.
Right. Yeah, if you filed charges before that happened, you'd run the risk that they'd run down here to municipal court, plea that out, and they'd get out of the felony charge. So we'd wait for that process to conclude before we charge it here.
So Ryan, as a follow-up question, and really Mark kind of triggered my question, are we able to charge at a felony, as a felony, or no higher than a misdemeanor?
Well, in municipal court, we can only charge misdemeanors.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know, the Gardner PD has the ability to work a case up, send it to the DA's office. The DA is the one who has the authority to charge the felony.
But if they kick it back to us, that person
Right, and
would only be, the worst would only be a misdemeanor.
right.
Okay.
Because the third DUI felony has requirements for the prior convictions to qualify as a third. So, you know, oftentimes, like Amy said, it may get kicked up there, and for whatever reason, the two priors don't qualify, and so they may kick it back.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion, any questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
Second. Motion Milton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance number 2681, an ordinance regulating traffic upon the streets, highways, alleys of the city of Gardner, Kansas, incorporating by reference the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas City's edition of 2020, and all acts supplementary and amendatory thereto, prepared and published in booklet form by the League of Kansas Municipalities. Certain chapters of Title 10 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, 2020 edition, with certain deletions, omissions, changes, and additions, prescribing additional regulations, or repealing ordinance number 2591 under the provisions of KSA 12-3009 through 12-3012 and KSA 12-3301 and 12-3302. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Ordinance 2681 passes. New business item number 3. Consider adopting an ordinance fixing certain standards of conduct for persons within the city of Gardner, Kansas, making violation of any such standards a public offense, subject to penalty, incorporating by reference the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas City's edition of 2020. I have a feeling, Amy, this is a very similar exercise.
It is very similar.
Yes.
So on the other side, we have the Uniform Public Offense Code that we adopt every year with our ordinance that allows for changes, deletions. And so this year, for the edition of 2020, the big ticket was Tobacco 21 legislation. This actually passed down in the federal government prior to it passing before the 2019 UPOC. And so this year, the state did make this onto their session and pass the Tobacco 21 legislation. And so this is what the big change is this year. And so this is actually a little bit different because the law is the selling, giving, or furnishing of cigarettes, tobacco products to a minor. So this is against a location that's selling tobacco. They are not allowed to sell to anyone under the age of 21. It also, when the state passed it, included providing. So this is also supplying a minor with tobacco and also e-cigarettes and vape has been included. And so this is a little bit different because it is on the seller. It has nothing to do with the minor. It is all on the seller. So the law gets a little tricky, but the citation would be wrote to the seller. I will also point out that the state and the federal government made it so that we cannot overwrite this law. The only thing that we could do is potentially pass a 21 smoking age. That's not what is in here, so we'll just put that out there. So we are just following what is required by us for the state, that this is now in the Uniform Public Offense Code. Other added sections this year were criminal carrying of a weapon with inclusion of any pistol, revolver, or other firearm concealed on one person if such person is under 21 years of age, except when on such person's land or in such person's abode or fixed place of business. There are exemptions to this rule, such as military, police, jobs that allow for them to carry. So this was also included in the Uniform Public Offense. And then as a last bit, they actually went in and added violation of public health orders. So they wrote in, it shall be unlawful for any person to violate, refuse, or fail to comply with a written order of the county health office, board of health, or director of health issued under the respective authorities. Also, consistent with last year's, we've asked that we omit section 4.5, buying sexual relations, and section 451, unlawful use of a communications facility, as these offenses will be charged under the jurisdiction of Johnson County. We don't feel we have the resources to try those cases, and the district court will take those for us. And then we also went through and changed everything to reflect the 2020 edition, as well as any reference to business and economic development was updated to be community development. And this also has been reviewed by legal. So.
All right, any public comment on new business item number 4? All right, seeing none questions, I'm sure there are quite a few for Amy on this. Yes, Mark?
I will start with, why are we adding any language when there's already a federal or state law?
So we are not actually adding. This was added by the state. And so I just wanted to point them out so that you are knowing what you're passing, that everything stayed the same, but these were the additions. So when you're voting on this, you're voting that you know. So transparency is what this actually is about, so that you know that that's written in there.
We can't opt out of these.
The tobacco
Well,
21,
I
you
would say that.
cannot.
Yeah, I
The
was gonna
other
say, we
two, I'm going to refer to Ryan. Do you know? I
So
could not find it. So.
Yeah, I mean, if your question related to the tobacco 21, it's federal legislation, it's state law. Actually, last year it was federal law, but not state law. And the question was posed to LKM last year why they didn't include it in the UPOC, and they said, we only include stuff in the UPOC that's violation of state law. Well, the state followed through and passed tobacco 21 this year, so then LKM included it. And you can charge that as a misdemeanor in municipal court. And so if you don't have it in the UPOC, then you cannot do that. It's only a violation of state statute, which the DA either may or may not decide to charge. And those offenses, if you look at the penalties for them, I think they're largely misdemeanors. Yeah.
It has to be if we're.
Yeah.
Yeah, class B misdemeanors, but by state law, I think they're misdemeanors as well.
And I had a question about, are we now, and we, I mean, like, government in general, referring to a minor as someone who is under 21 now? Because
In this legislation, yes, they do refer it that way.
seems a bit odd that you can be a minor at 20 years old.
I just don't know why we want to get in the business of prosecuting these when the DA can handle that case.
Well, I mean, typically, these misdemeanor type violations are going to be prosecuted in municipal court. A $200 fine on a misdemeanor, the DA typically would prefer to handle higher level felony type matters and have the local municipality prosecute the misdemeanor type matters in municipal court.
Did you want to bring up that other two?
Yeah, well, while we're at it,
Because I'm gonna find another one there.
this wasn't something that got changed, but the section 9.6 unlawful juvenile activity. I don't understand why we aren't letting the parents control their children. This, if you read 96A, right, it specifically, the way it's worded, says that it doesn't matter if it's a public or private, all sorts of things. But let's say that you go with the building. So private building, i.e. your home, without the consent or permission of the owner occupant, let's say you get permission from your dad to sit out in the front lawn, during the hours of 11 to 6, unless accompanied by the parent or someone over 21. And then B says the parent can't even give you grounds to break this rule. So if you have a 17-year-old and it's Friday night and he has two friends over and they're sitting in their front yard, they're technically at 11:05 in violation of curfew. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Why are we taking away or trying to put something on the backs of the police to enforce when there's a parent that should be enforcing what their child is doing from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
So if I can speak out of memory, I believe that this actually was written into our ordinance because we did have some issues in some multifamily where kids were gathering in parking lots. And it took one adult to say that that was acceptable when they weren't their kids, or that it was a whole group that they were taking responsibility from. And so I feel like that was written as a means for us to be able to control the situation through this ordinance.
Might be a little broad then. I mean, if we wanted to say something about city property,
Or on your personal property.
or put an exception up for private property, or it already states that you have to have permission from the parent, legal guardian, or other person over the age of 21. So if you were breaking any piece of that, the rest doesn't matter where you are, essentially.
And if it's multifamily that we're having a problem with, then it should specify multifamily.
968.
Oh, here, so
And what's juvenile? Anything under 21?
According to this, it's under the age of 18.
Under 18?
At least we haven't changed that definition yet.
Yeah. So juvenile is up to 18, minor is under 21.
It just seems like an overreach. Or I get the sentiment, right? You know, the old saying, nothing good happens after 2 a.m., 1 a.m., midnight, whatever time frame, right? I get it. You don't want a whole lot of stuff happening in parking lots and alleys and vacant lots. I get it.
yeah.
But you also have, you know, other laws on the books that if something is happening, I think the least of it that you care about is that they broke the juvenile activity.
And I didn't see any kind of exemption either for work. So if you actually are under 18 and you're working late, like Saturday night at Pizza Hut, there's no exemption for that if you're on your way home.
Well, this is only for loitering.
Yeah, well, Lord, okay, so it's not actually driving.
And this is one of 3 ordinances we passed, I believe, in 16, that we were having ongoing and consistent problems with this particular issue. So that's why there were 3, and I don't remember exactly what the other 2 were, but we brought 3 of them to council, and I believe Ryan drafted them at that time.
Jim has a better memory than I do. But I could go back and find my notes on it.
So I have a question. So 9.6A, these have already been on the books. This is
Yes.
not, so we're just debating on why it's on the books from whenever we already agreed. Okay.
Since we're
Yes.
changing it, I mean, it's not,
Okay.
it's not open. Because when you pass it, you're passing the whole thing.
Right,
So,
right, I get it. I just wanted, because I was trying to figure out if.
no, it's not one of the new changes.
If most of you were on city council when this happened, and did you have a problem then, and why do you have a problem now? That's all I was asking.
No.
Okay.
Well, and it was a typical problem that we were having. It's just this year, because of
Okay.
COVID, it's not as
Gotcha.
evident as it has been in years
I didn't know if
past.
there was new or, okay.
No. Your contention, Councilman, is that this is too broadly written and that it probably needs to be clarified or narrowed.
Either the scope needs to be to public property, right? I mean, it's fine if you want to say you can't be at a park at 1:30 in the morning, right? We can close our parks anyway. We already have, signage.
Yes.
But, and if you're on the sidewalk, well, as long as you're not loitering, fine, right? But what about, there is that umbrella feel to it. And then for B to explicitly state that the parent can't authorize, that part bothers me. Because if you have responsible children and you're being responsible for them, just because they're in your yard, and I know that's probably an extreme case, but that's how it's written.
It does say, it mentions without permission of owner of,
Right.
Without.
which could be the parent, which
Right.
would then give them.
But it still doesn't change
It says
this.
without the consent.
Yeah.
So if they're, basically what it says is, if you're in a public place, public property, street, road, highway, sidewalk, or on private property without that property owner's consent, and you're loitering as defined therein, then they can cite you.
Like, I've seen kids in previous years, not this year obviously because of COVID, but I've seen kids in previous years hanging out over at the Blazers parking lot, for example, after 11 o'clock. And it used to be, a pretty big problem. They'd go out and cruise and, hang out. That kind of speaks to not having enough activities for kids in the community, but that's. But that's,
Did my eyes roll hard enough on that?
yeah,
I mean,
I know, but I think that's.
I mean, man, there was nothing to do when I was a kid either. We just drove around.
I would think that if you were gonna determine that it was without the consent of the property owner's, consent, the officer would have to make contact with the property owner and say, hey, these kids are here, do you want me to take action? Did you tell them that they were here without consent?
Correct.
And so, my guess is, how often do we cite for this?
The actual, very rarely, to be honest with you, as far as citing. It would be nice if more parents did control their kids.
Yeah.
But I can speak from experience that a lot of them that we will find out at 2 or so in the morning when you call a parent, don't care. The parent, why are you calling me and waking me up at 2 in the morning? They literally didn't care where their child was. So, the way counsel's reading it is the way the attorney's reading it's the way I would read it too as an officer. That if I went to your home and your kids were on the front lawn, as long as they had your permission, then that wouldn't be an issue. It wouldn't fall under that secondary part where you're talking about the parent having to be outside with them. We would just be looking for the owner of that property to have said it's okay for them to be there.
And again, this is complaint driven, so I mean, as with most of our,
Well, to some extent, this isn't always complaint driven because we will find kids out at 2 in the morning wandering around the streets. So this isn't fully complaint driven. I mean, we will take enforcement if we have to.
Okay.
Okay, but if they're walking somewhere, then they're not loitering. So why would we stop them anyway?
We don't necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, there usually has to be something else with it.
Right.
Which, to what the mayor is saying is, yes, normally if we found something like that, it would be associated with, we've had somebody call in and, report some suspicious activity of some type, or that we have been experiencing auto burglaries or something like that in the area. But generally speaking, just a group of kids walking home that time of night may not even get stopped and talked to.
There's a variety of discretion here then, that's being executed by our fine folks at GPD.
This has nothing to do with the police department. I understand. This is just that, and you made an excellent point, that for the parents that are being responsible, this is overreach by government. And for the parents that don't care, this is irrelevant to them. So regardless of what this says, it doesn't change anything for the irresponsible. And for the responsible, it adds an additional hoop, potentially. So it just seems like it's unnecessary, and
Well, if you could change it, how would you like to see it changed?
I just remove it. Or specifically state city property, one or the other.
So remove the private property off that completely.
Yeah, problem.
So if you got a group of 20 kids hanging out at Blazers after 11 p.m. at night,
you still have to have permission.
But that would be the private property though. I mean, they would have to contact Wally if it's Blazers to find out if Wally approved that.
Right, but if Wally had given kids permission, it's homecoming and they won their football game, and he's like, hey, sit out here, I got milkshakes for everybody, and it's 11:10 at night, who are we to dictate that that is improper?
I don't think we would. We would just call Wally or whoever and.
Why are we even questioning it? Have they broken a law?
Well, I think there's some discretion though. I mean, I think if they're driving by and they're drinking milkshakes, they're probably not gonna be too concerned about it.
I understand that, but why are we putting it where
doing
we have to have
donuts
discretion?
in the parking lot and those kind of things, then they probably will be more concerned. I mean,
I think that hopefully maybe I can answer that a little bit. You speak a lot of the discretion. If you take that out, it takes some of that discretion away from us. It doesn't give us the opportunity to protect that private property from somebody doing some damage or something to it that we don't know about, because we don't even have the ability to stop necessarily and talk to them to see, are they just out there drinking milkshakes, or are they out there planning to have a fight? This gives us a reason to be able to contact the ones that we feel we need to. It does not mean that we're going to contact every single one we see. Just like every tail light that we see, we don't stop. You're taking away some of the discretion by removing that for us.
Anybody else feel the same way?
I don't have a problem keeping it in, but that's just me.
In my opinion, if the police department thinks we need it, then I'm okay with it in the code.
I think as long as we're not, it's not being abused at like my house, they're not swinging through the night.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. When you have it on the books, we have a wonderful police department. Doesn't mean you will always have that and it sits on the books for 30 years from now and things change, right?
Well, what would we take out of there to make it?
Like I said, I'd actually be okay if you just eliminated the whole thing. Responsible parents be responsible, and the irresponsible, if the kids get in trouble, they're gonna get in trouble for something else anyway.
I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, but I don't have a problem the way it's written, and I think it does give them opportunity to work like they're supposed to if they need to.
All right.
And I just, Wayne, if a judge sees this being abused, then they will step in. I mean, if you're not gonna take, as a police officer, you're not gonna take a case that the judge is going to look at you like, why are you wasting your time on this? And they're gonna evaluate how this is being applied and whether it's abused and whether it's consistent with the intent here. And I think the intent is pretty clear in how it's enforced. So even though somebody's cited, I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to jail. They may have to appear in front of the judge, but if you get into a position where the judge is looking at you and questioning your motives and the value of what you're doing, then there's some correction there that will take place.
Any other comments or questions? All right, you had some questions on this?
I think that we've covered them very well.
Yeah. I had a question about section 1011.
10 what?
1011, about criminal carrying of a weapon. So what would constitute criminal carrying of a weapon? Because it seems to me that this would outlaw concealed carry for anyone under the age of 21. Is that correct?
It is.
It already is for.
You can
state
open
law
carry at 18, but you cannot
carry a
conceal
pistol.
carry.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah.
that is not changed at all.
Right, that's state law.
And there are exemptions, I will say, for any military personnel, law enforcement, security guards. So if employment requires them to carry, they can with their concealed
But
carry.
this only regulates conceal and not open.
Yes, that
At
is
those,
correct.
any of those jobs, they couldn't conceal anyway with current state laws. They'd have to
Correct.
be open carrying.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why my daughters have pistols when they're 18.
That's why I was wondering. I was wondering about about your daughters.
Oh yeah, don't worry,
specifically.
they're covered.
All right. Just want to make sure. I thought you were gonna bring that up. But that's,
I already knew the
Yeah,
law,
you
and I
already
knew
knew
it was
the
right
law,
there in the
exactly.
right way.
Okay.
It's good.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And then the other thing is about the health order, 1029. Is this something that was passed in the wake of coronavirus and part of the executive orders or health orders that are?
No.
This is not.
So there is no corresponding state statute on that. And
That's correct.
if you all didn't bring it up, I was going to bring it up because I had another jurisdiction last week that had concerns about it, in particular relative to the masking order and whether we're going to criminalize that. I looked into it, and it's my opinion that the masking order actually doesn't fall within the purview of 10.29. The masking order, at least in Johnson County, was an executive order issued by the governor. The legislature passed a state statute which allowed counties to exempt themselves or make the requirements of a public health order of the governor less stringent, in other words, to opt out of it. The hearings at the county were, they didn't adopt, the County Board of Commissioners didn't adopt their own order. Their action was whether or not they were going to exempt themselves from the governor's order, and they ultimately elected not to do so. So that's kind of a long way of saying that the masking order is actually an order of the governor that the county didn't opt itself out of. So it doesn't meet the definition of a written order issued by a county health officer or the county board of health. That said, the county board of health and the health officer do issue orders. There is no corresponding state statute with this. The closest equivalent to it is the state statute, which used to criminalize, until just during COVID, used to criminalize emergency orders. The legislature changed that to a civil penalty enforceable by the district attorney. So there is no corresponding criminal statute under state law. LKM put this in here. It was their recommendation from their membership. If you all didn't bring it up, I was going to bring it up because I think a lot of people have a lot of angst about that, about criminalizing it when there is a civil remedy that exists under state statute now. You absolutely have the right to exempt yourself from 1029.
I'm leaning in that direction specifically because of the fact that if, let's say, the director of public health in our county decides to issue a mask order, then it would fall under this. Am I correct?
I think that's right. They also changed some other stuff, and they required that anytime any orders like that are put in place, that the county board of commissioners ultimately has to sit and approve those, because they wanted elected officials approving those types of actions. So I don't know that it would go unchecked. The other side of it, though, is that the county health officer issues orders for other purposes all the time.
Correct.
And this does give enforcement authority for those other types of orders in a criminal context.
I think you remove it, completely exempt ourselves, because if the county health officer has some issue that the county commission approved, then the county can enforce it.
I would be in agreement with that, because I don't think that the orders of
that has nothing to do with COVID, masks, that's just in general.
I agree.
Yeah. I agree too. So we're gonna strike 1029 then?
That's my recommendation.
That's my.
Is that the consensus? Okay, we're gonna strike 29. Good. That one seemed to be a lot of overreach, especially given what we're going through right now, so. All right, any other proposals for changes? If not, we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 3.
Have we minus the 1029?
Yes, minus with the amendment. I was going to say that at the end of this.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance number 2682, an ordinance fixing certain standards of conduct for persons within the city of Gardner, Kansas, making violation of any such standards of public offense, subject to penalty, incorporating by reference the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas City's edition of 2020, and all acts supplementary and amendatory thereto, prepared and published in booklet form by the League of Kansas Municipalities, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith under the provisions of KSA 12-3009 through 12-3012 and KSA 12-3301 and 12-3302 as amended by the body to remove section 10.29. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gaversick?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
No.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Ordinance 2682 passes 4-1. Moving on, thank you very much, Amy. Moving on to agenda item number 4, consider adopting resolution amending resolution number 1976, authorizing the city of Gardner, Kansas to construct improvements to certain main traffic ways and traffic-way connectors, and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the costs thereof, all pursuant to KSA 12-685 et sec. Matt Wolf, welcome back.
Previously at this October 16th, 2017 council meeting, council approved resolution number 1976 authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost of certain traffic-way and traffic-way connection improvements as a part of I-35 and Gardner Road. Resolution number 1976 authorized the issuance of $3.04 million in general obligation bonds to finance improvements. Since then, cost estimates have increased, and now the city finds it necessary to amend the resolution to increase the authorized amount for the project. The city plans to issue GEO bonds in the amount of $3,565,000 to finance its portion of the project. Annual debt service will be paid from the Special Highway Fund. Staff recommends that you adopt the proposed resolution. And as a reminder, Municipal Advisor Kimmel and also Bond Counsel Ellsworth are here to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Any public comment on new business item number 4? I'm really anxious to start this project. Questions for Matt or for Bruce or Tyler who are on the Zoom call?
Get to roll.
Yeah, we need to get some steam rolling with that. All right, any questions from anyone the rest of it? If not, we'll move on to a motion for new business item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Gregorczyk, second, Melton, that we adopt resolution number 2064, resolution amending resolution number 1976 of the city of Gardner, Kansas, to authorize an increase in the cost of improvements to certain main traffic ways and traffic way connections financed through the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city, all pursuant to KSA 12-685 et sec. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Resolution 2064 passes. Way to pay for this improvement. New business item number 5, consider a petition for the formation of a benefit district for offsite sanitary sewer improvements and 167th Street improvements for the Hilltop Ridge development, and adopt a resolution determining the advisability of certain internal improvements in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing and providing for the making of such improvements in accordance with the findings of the governing body and KSA 12-6A01 et sec. For the Hilltop Ridge Phase 1 Offsite Sanitary Sewer and 167th Street Special Benefit District. Matt Wolf.
The developer and property owner for the proposed Hilltop Ridge residential development has petitioned the city for the creation of 2 separate special benefit districts for the construction. The first one is for the construction of off-site sanitary sewer improvements and 167th Street improvements. Hilltop Ridge is a multi-phase residential development that at full build-out will contain 150 single-family lots. The construction of the first phase includes 31 single-family lots. To help mitigate the risk to the city, the developer is providing an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $160,000. The letter of credit will expire after the completion of residences on all 31 lots within the Hilltop Ridge first plat. The city can draw on all or part of the total amount of credit in the event of delinquency in the payment of special assessments for the project. Maximum cost of improvements for the improvement district is $1 million and $10,000, including the issuance costs, including the cost of issuance for temporary notes and long-term bonds, and the interest expense on temporary notes. The cost of improvements will be assessed 100% against the improvement district and 0% against the city at large. The proposed term of the improvement district is 20 years. Staff recommends adopting the proposed resolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. Any public comment on new business item number 6, or number 5, sorry, number 5? Seeing none, any questions for Matt on this? having to do with the benefit district. I did have one question, talking about 20-year term for this benefit district. That seems to be, I know it's not out of the ordinary to have a 20-year term on your benefit district. Is that to make the overall special assessment lower on the property for that term?
That's correct. And also, I mean, useful life should be up to 20 years on the improvements. And then the longer the term, the lower the actual annual special assessments will be on the properties.
Okay. And they're all right with absorbing that cost on those,
Yes.
on those properties?
The term was the request from the developer.
It was requested by
Yes.
you. All right, excellent. All right, any other questions from anybody else? All right, I'll entertain a motion on resolution number 2065 then.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt resolution 2065, a resolution determining the advisability of certain internal improvements in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing and providing for the making of such improvements in accordance with the findings of the government body and KSA-12-6A01 at SEC, the Hilltop Ridge Phase 1 off-site sanitary sewer in 167th Street Special Benefit District. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Resolution 2065 passes. New business item number 6, consider a petition for the formation of a benefit district for certain internal site improvements for the first plat of the Hilltop Ridge development. Adopt a resolution determining the advisability of certain internal improvements in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing and providing for the making of such improvements in accordance with the findings of the governing body in KSA-12-6A018 SEC, Hilltop Ridge First Phase Street Special Benefit District. Mr. Wolf.
This is the second benefit district that the developer and property owner petitioned for the city to create. It's for the on-site sewer and stormwater improvements for the first plat. The maximum cost of the improvements for this improvement district is $500,000. The cost of the improvements will be 100% assessed to the improvement district and 0% to the city at large. The proposed term for this improvement district is 20 years. Staff recommends that you approve the proposed resolution.
Thank you. Public comment on new business item number 6. Seeing none, I did have a question that was, is this also subject to a letter of credit, or is it under the same letter of credit as the first benefit district?
I believe Tyler can address that. Tyler, is the letter of credit for both districts, or is it one for each district?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. The letter of credit is combined, so it's the same letter of credit for both benefit districts.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, appreciate it. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion on resolution 2066.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adopt resolution 2066, a resolution determining the advisability of certain internal improvements in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing and providing for the making of such improvements in accordance with the findings of the governing body in KSA 12-6A01 at SEC, Hilltop Ridge Phase 1, First Plat, Internal Improvement Special Benefit District. City Clerk.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Resolution 2066 passes. Moving on, new business item number 7, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the public sale of certain general obligation bonds and notes of the city of Gardner, Kansas. Matt, we are doing part 2 of our bond issuance.
We are.
Yes.
The city is scheduled to sell approximately $5.205 million in principal amount of general obligation bonds and approximately $5.28 million in principal amount of general obligation temporary notes on November 16th, 2020 at 11 a.m. The GO bonds are to pay for the I-35 and Gardner Road project and to also take care of a 2010A bond refunding. It is advantageous for the city to refund the callable Series 2010A bonds to achieve an estimated $132,200 in future interest cost savings. The general obligation temp notes are for the Hilltop Ridge Special Benefit Districts and also to refund the 2019A temporary notes. The purpose of refunding these notes is to extend the maturity of them. And extending the maturity of the temporary notes provides more time for the construction improvements to be completed before permanent debt is issued and specials are assessed. The attached resolution authorizes all preparations to facilitate the sale of the bonds and temporary notes. Once again, Bond Counsel Ellsworth and Municipal Advisor Kimmel are here to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you very much, Matt, appreciate it. Any public comment on new business item number 7? Questions for Matt or Tyler or Bruce?
I've got one.
All right,
What do you guys think the numbers are gonna be on our interest rate? When it goes up for bid?
Bruce?
I don't think Bruce is on there. Oh, there he is. Oh, yeah, no, I was thinking we're gonna be around 2%.
Over
Yeah,
under on
I think
this.
we're gonna be around 2%, so I was wondering what your thoughts were.
Well, I'll tell you, as you can see with the proposed 10-year financing, we're estimating about 1.4%, and that actually has some cushion in it. Right now, the 10-year offering would be closer to 1.25.
Oh, that'll be okay, I guess.
It's hard to know if there'll be any change in and around the election. I don't think we actually will see much. It's been such a stable market, and all the experts that I'm reading, although all of our crystal balls are murky, aren't expecting a lot of post-election volatility. But I would definitely see you being right in that 125 to 150 range at the high end.
I'd accept that.
Debt is cheap, and debt is really cheap for municipalities right
Yeah, no
now,
kidding.
so, yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Bruce, appreciate that. Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion on resolution 2067.
So moved.
Second. Motion Milton, second Baldwin, that we adopt resolution 2067, a resolution authorizing the offer for public sale of certain general obligation bonds and notes of the city of Gardner, Kansas. Approximate principal amount is $5,205,000 and $5,280,000 respectively. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Resolution 2067 passes. Moving on to new business item number 8. To consider adopting a resolution approving the execution and delivery of an amended and restated development agreement for a development project within the city. This is for Grata Development. Matt?
I think you've heard enough from me tonight, so I invited the city's bond counsel, Tyler Ellsworth of Kutak Rock, to provide an overview of the proposed resolution and the amended and restated development agreement.
Great. Tyler?
Good evening, Mayor and
Yes.
Council. Yeah, I just have a couple brief remarks about the resolution and about the first amended restated development agreement for the Grata project here for you. As you all will recall, we entered a development agreement with Grata about a year ago. And the broad points of the deal between the city and the developer were that the city would provide certain electric, water, and sewer infrastructure at the city's cost. And the developer would provide certain street improvements, natural gas improvements, and they would develop the residential portions of the project with the commercial development to follow. This amended and restated development agreement doesn't change the broad terms of the deal, doesn't really change the substance of the deal. It's really a clarification with respect to some of the details. There were two exhibits in the existing development agreement. One exhibit that outlined where the electric improvements would go, how electricity would be distributed within the project, in terms of single phase versus three phase, above ground versus underground. We have a new exhibit after several discussions between city utility staff and the developer. It updates how those electric infrastructure improvements will be provided. We also have a slight revision to the exhibit for the water infrastructure. A year ago, we weren't sure whether the city would be extending its own water utility to provide water service to the project, or whether water would be provided by Water One. Subsequently, there have been discussions with Water One. Water One is going to be providing water service, so we have some clarifications to the agreement to that effect. So really, it's a at the end of the day, really just a couple of clarifications to the existing development agreement. But with that, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions about this.
Okay, thank you, Tyler, appreciate it. Public comment on new business item number 8. Questions for Tyler or for Matt on these modifications to the development agreement? So there's just basically some clarifications in there from the standpoint of who's going to be providing water, and also from the standpoint of some certain aspects of electrical service distribution and.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. Tyler, Article 2, Section 2.05, the milestones are all still in place. Nothing's changed based on the details.
Correct.
Okay.
No change to the milestones.
Thank you.
Correct. And the actual project scope itself has not changed as well. It's just clarifying specific types of utility improvements or anything else. Any other questions?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 2068.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Gorsick, second Melton, that we adopt Resolution 2068, a resolution of the City of Gardner, Kansas, approving the execution and delivery of a first amended and restated development agreement for development project within the city. City Clerk.
Councilmember Gorsick.
Yes.
Councilmember Melton.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Winters.
Yes.
Or Resolution 2068 passes. That concludes our regular agenda. Move on to council updates. Does staff have anything for council? I'm going to start on I'm going to start with Public Works. Michael Kramer, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I just had one update. You all received, I think, correspondence regarding the crosswalk on South Center Street or Gardner Road and Pawnee. And so we've reviewed that, and we're moving forward with, and we looked at the warrants and what we, thought from an engineering standpoint would be a good solution. And really that, the RRFD, the rapid flashing beacons, similar to 183rd and Mulberry. We believe that that's a good solution there, to add a safety enhancement, especially with the number of lanes the pedestrian needs to cross there, and it helps give the vehicles a heads up. So we're moving forward with figuring out exactly how that's going to work, as far as whether we need to hire a contractor to do that, or if we can self-perform that. In the past, when we ordered those signals on Mulberry, and 183rd, it was a long lead time to get those. So I'm not sure how quickly this project will take place, but we are moving forward.
Okay, great. That'll help to enhance the safety of that significantly. I know that when I drive up Center Street and I see people waiting on the sides of the road, nobody stops. It takes forever for people to cross at that location. So.
Yeah, we have a park there that's a draw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kids may be walking to school, so I applaud the city for doing that. I would also hope that we could self-perform it versus contracting it out, but that's just my 2 cents.
I hope so as well.
Yeah, I think the more we can self-perform, the better it'll be for our citizens, standpoint of just cost efficiency. So I agree with the council member. Anything else for us?
Not this evening.
How's the Santa Fe Waverly project coming along?
The project's moving along. All the paving is done on the project, and right now, quite honestly, it'd be opened up, but they're waiting on the final street signs, and then the electrical and the lighting is going in, and they're working on that right now. And so really those things, and should be open,
Does-
I want to say relatively soon.
Does that require a street closure though, to put in those signs and the electrical?
Well, so the signs need to be in for the project to open up, and as far as the, you know, the electrical and the cleanup and the landscaping that's going on, you know, it's really, for the contractor's safety, and since they're in charge of the site safety, they've requested they keep it closed another couple of weeks.
Okay. I know that there's a lot of folks that are getting a little concerned about, you know, it going into November and not having the road available, so that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, and I agree, I'd like to see it open as soon as possible, while also keeping the pulse on the contractor's safety.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Michael, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Community Development, Mr. Nopick.
Nothing tonight. We do have Planning Commission next week. We have 2 items on the agenda, one having to do with the CIE element of the comprehensive plan, and the other one, I believe, is a plat item.
Okay, great, thank you. Jason Bruce, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Recreation is just getting ready for drive-through Boo next Thursday. So we've been sending some information out to the general public about that, and more details will come out over the next week and a half.
So explain a little bit about drive-through Boo and what we're going to be doing there. Are you going to be throwing candy into car windows or?
Well, no, Mayor, we will not be doing that. You know, this is a first for us too. We're kind of stealing ideas from other communities throughout the country that are experiencing lack of group gatherings and things like that. So we've been working closely with PD on traffic routing, and you know, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. So it's safe. Nobody's getting out of their cars. One stop where we're gonna get all the kids a goodie bag. We're gonna have some decorations, some entertainment through their car. So I think it'll be pretty neat.
Cool, awesome. That'll be great.
Saddest time of the year for me right now.
Utilities. Do we have guns or?
We have Jeff Lamar.
Jeff, utilities.
I guess the biggest update would be that we are in land acquisition process for Prairie Trace on the water line and for the force main coming back to the east lift station. All of those property owners have been contacted. We do have a couple signed documents so far. And then the interceptor project and the force main project have been advertised for bids as well.
Great.
Hey Jeff, can you talk about the west lateral and the timing of that for Prairie Trace?
That is going to be kind of a little timing issue that we have, because that will introduce another lift station into the system that we will need to get back across the freeway. So dependent on how fast that moves, it's going to be pretty tricky to get that in a quick, timely way, because we still have to design that. We just received a proposal for that design from Schlegel today. So we're reviewing that, and we'll be moving forward with possibly an amendment to their existing contract on that.
Okay. Right. So the trickiness is that they're still completing their work on the frontage road? And
well, the change is, and you might have seen this in the Kansas City Business Journal, is that they've signed an agreement with Cityscape to build the multifamily, which was not due to be built till later in the project. So the west lateral and the arterial will need to come in sooner than it was anticipated.
Yeah. So long and short of it is that we're going to have to get some additional work done that we didn't anticipate.
And it's also increased the interest in commercial development as well, so.
Which I'm very much in favor of.
Right.
Quicker that goes in, the better. So,
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff, appreciate it. Any update at all on wastewater treatment plant? I know that,
No, I checked with Gons on that on Friday, and we're still waiting for a response from KDHE, so.
okay. So I know that we've given direction for them to
Correct.
explore that, so, all right, great, thank you. Captain Kraut.
Thank you, Mayor. We like to keep you guessing on who's gonna be here each meeting, so you're doing good though. So, the only thing I'd just like to throw out, it kind of goes along with what Jason was talking about with the drive-up boo bash. For many years now, on Halloween, our officers have handed out candy and done a lot of photo ops and things with the kids as they're going around. This year, we've discussed it as the administration. We just don't feel it's prudent for us to do that due to the COVID. So we want to make sure that the public knows, and we are going to put out some social media stuff about it. We will still have extra officers out patrolling for everybody's safety. We just won't be handing out candy like we've normally done. That's kind of a disappointment to us as well. The officers actually enjoy those photo opportunities and the chance to get out and interact with the kids, but unfortunately 2020 just keeps giving. So we just aren't going to be able to do it this year. We just don't feel it's prudent.
That's an understatement, but I appreciate the sentiment. I know we all would like to get back to where we were, but a little longer. City Clerk. I did want to mention that in the consent agenda, we appointed a whole bunch of people to boards and commissions. We didn't get a chance to recognize them because they were on consent, but I'll name them right now. Nicole Beaton, George Rifford, and Brandon Williams are now part of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Dennis Liss, Julie Aldridge, and Mike Reynolds have been appointed, and some have been reappointed to the Public Works and Accessibility Committees. And thank you to all those folks who are volunteering their time and effort for those committees so that we can have some meaningful meetings again in those areas. There is still a need for other members and other committees.
At least one on the EDAC.
Yep, you have one on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I believe, is there one also on utilities as well? I thought there was. Okay. Well, thank you again, and thank you for the folks on the council who were able to work with us on getting those filled as well. All right, thanks again, Sarah. All right, Finance Director Wolf, anything else?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, yeah, you've talked enough.
Except for the news.
Yeah. City Attorney Dank.
Nothing from me.
All right, great. And City Administrator.
So since we annexed properties along 199th Street, we've had an ongoing discussion with the County Public Works about 199th Street and the vision for that roadway. Back in 2013, Gardner, Edgerton, KDOT, and the county put together a plan that illustrates that 199th Street would be developed eventually into a parkway. At that time, it was the footprint for the intermodal was relatively small. I think it was 6 million square feet, which they've gone well past that. And of course, it wasn't part of the city at that time. So as we've carried out discussions with the county, their desire is to continue to accommodate commercial truck traffic on 199th Street. This is an opportune time with them finishing the bridge and the work on 199th west of Gardner Road to revisit that plan and look at other options. It's not, part of the plan states that it's KDOT's responsibility to facilitate commercial truck traffic. It's not incumbent on local jurisdictions to do that. So what I'd like to do with the consensus, I'd like to bring a resolution back to the governing body at the next meeting, just saying that we would like to revisit that plan and look at alternative truck routing other than 199th Street. 199th is not, of course, it's mostly our responsibility now. If you drive up and down the street, they just did some crack repair and stuff. It wasn't built for heavy haul trucks, but there's hundreds of trucks that go up and down the road every single day. I met with a group of residents out at their house this week, and you can literally feel the trucks going by. I mean, the quality of life has been diminished greatly by the number of trucks that go through there. At one point, Michael Kramer and I discussed the possibility of shutting down 199 to trucks. And of course, they weren't in favor of that, but a few months later, they came back to us and said they were thinking of closing down 207th to trucks because of all the complaints. And there's far fewer conflict points on 207th Street than there are. And at the time that this study was done, one of the options for the interchange was 199th Street. Homestead was actually the 9th option, and they picked that because it was further away from residential communities. And because of the way that the intermodal or the logistics park is built out south of I-35 and down Hostess and Kubota, it just makes sense to revisit that and make sure that that's the most viable plan for moving commercial trucks through the area. So with consensus or agreement, I will bring back something for the council to consider that we can send to the state, to the county, to Edgerton, to reopen this conversation and take a closer look at where we are now and where we need to be in the next 20 years.
So Jim, I would agree, oh, excuse me, Mayor.
No, go on.
Could we just see that study that you referenced, just so that we can kind of polish up on?
I've actually got 2 or 3 I'm gonna send you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mayor.
We also have the regional transportation plans, the MARC regional transportation plan that also shows that particular corridor as being.
And they just put out their 2050 plan, so.
Correct.
Yeah, my MARC information's a decade old, so that's why I was asking for.
That's correct.
Update.
That's correct. Well, the plans are changing and it's evolving because of the fact that LPKC is growing faster than anybody anticipated. Right. So that's bringing more trucks, and it's affecting infrastructure, not just along the 199th Street, but along Gardner Road, over to the east, over towards 169. There's issues. So it's definitely something that has to be addressed.
Right, and before they start doing work west of or east of Gardner Road over towards Spring Hill, this would be the time to interject our opinion and get people back to the table, because there's also some things with the state, like moving the weigh station, and that's one of the things we're doing now is we're studying truck traffic and the volume and see if it changes when the weigh station is open versus when it's closed. And they had contemplated moving it south a few years ago, but abandoned that because of cost. So that's something else that when we get to the table, we can discuss with KDOT.
I had heard something about the fact that the 199th Street overpass was actually going to include some means of scales.
So they have a pull-off lane where you can do portable scales, but if you look at the map, it would be very easy to avoid that by using Gardner Road north and south.
See, that's the problem. And a lot of trucks are already doing that. They're already turning off 199th Street, coming up Gardner Road, and then turning left onto the interstate. So it's a real problem.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'll start with, let me see. I'll start with Rich Melton. Anything for staff?
No, I'm upset that we're not gonna do Boo Bash like normal. I mean, but it's COVID, so what are you gonna do? I'm just gonna have to scare kids from far away, so,
You can do it.
You do. Yeah. I mean, I'm dressing up this time though, it's different. So, and then finally, if you're anybody out there thinking, man, my life is rough, I'm gonna tell you, tomorrow I celebrate, my wife and I celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary, so if you're feeling bad about yourself, just be lucky you're not her. She's been stuck with me for a long time, so I just wanna say,
Twitter will start having fun with that.
Right.
All right.
Anyway, that's it for me, so.
Okay. Councilman Baldwin.
Where are we at with conversations with the school on queuing?
Oh, at Madison?
Yeah. Michael, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, so we have we looked at it with our consultant, and they came up with a plan that actually increases the staffing in their parking lot by nearly 50%. And just by allowing a right turn in off of Waverly Road and eliminating the left turn in off of Madison. And so we've given that to the school district. We have not had the opportunity yet to discuss that with them in person. I believe Bruce has been out of the office, and so I assume, you know, once he's back in, we'll visit some more about that and see what kind of comments they have and see if they're open to trying out that plan.
My reason for asking, besides curiosity, is as we've seen with with Santa Fe 175th Street, right? It's drug on, it's annoyed some people. I will say it's wonderful now. I drove through it yesterday. It was nice. The signs were down.
Oh.
But
it was going to be a scandal. I was going to help you with that story.
But if we have to get the Waverly project going, it would be in our best interest, of course, to have it completed in the summer if we're doing anything at that intersection before school starts again. So I just want to make sure we're cognizant of not delaying the next project's pieces because of this.
So let me jump in, Michael, real quick.
The next
or not.
project pieces, I mean, as far as the consensus from the council to move forward, you know, we're moving forward with the design from 56 and then to Madison as far north. And so the conversation with the school district about their internal operations is kind of out of the picture now, and we're moving forward with that, you know, consensus and understanding of there won't be a roundabout at the intersection as part of this project. But we are, you know, so the project is moving forward. And as far as, you know, being able to complete when school's out of session, I think that's something we'll have to look at and certainly try and accomplish, but, you know, certainly that large of a project will be fairly difficult to avoid school altogether.
So staff took a critical look at how we manage projects, particularly at the front end when we're awarding contracts and setting timelines. And there's some things that we're going to implement to try to get things done in a more timely fashion going forward. So
sounds good.
That's really good to hear.
So, Michael, with the queuing improvements, does that mean our traffic consultant isn't coming back to tell us with those queuing improvements what will change as far as the letter grades on Madison and Waverly?
Yeah, it really will have very little effect on those grades as far as the level of service for the intersection itself.
So they'll still be F in 20 years? In two directions?
I don't remember the exact, but yeah, in 20 years, a four-way stop, it's, not a perfect level of service, certainly.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mark. No problem. Councilwoman Roberts.
Okay, Michael, I did notice that there's some people driving through Waverly and Santa Fe, and I suspect the new signage will help, but I've seen people going, at the Y, where if you're traveling east towards the city, you can go out and get on 56. I've seen people going down and going westbound into that road.
I almost had somebody come in on me.
Going both directions, not only going towards Edgerton, but coming from Edgerton. People are trying to turn in there.
Geez.
It was a mark. But it would be good if there's signage, and I don't know if there'll be a don't enter one-way sign, but that might be helpful. I've seen several people do it, so.
Mark wasn't one of them.
I don't think Mark was one of them.
The signs were down yesterday.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
That was it.
Okay, great. Councilman Gorsick.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for the question because I had a similar one. The next question is, what's the status on the old police department? I mean, I saw the memo and all that good stuff, but can you give me some more detail?
So, I can follow up on that. So right now, we are using that for storage of smart meters, but we are also at the same time moving forward with getting construction bids on demoing the site and getting it prepared for sale.
Okay.
And so,
How long is it gonna be before the smart meter project concludes? Do we know? I know we're about halfway through right now, or is it 2/3 of the way through?
We should
Do you know that, Jeff?
complete it by the first quarter, so early spring,
Okay, all
will be
right.
100%.
So, as a follow-up question, Kramer, with the spring being the due date for smart meters, which they're housing out of the old firehouse, are we gonna be able to demo that facility fairly quickly and get it on the market while it's hot?
so right now we're moving forward with getting the bids on that, and, you know, if those are favorable, we'll need to make a decision on, you know, whether GONS is gonna need to move those utility smart meters out and
Okay.
you know, help with the timing of the demo, or if we're gonna wait till that project's over.
Okay.
And he has located alternate locations.
Yeah, I figured he had.
Yeah, so if we
Okay.
need to move them, we can.
So we have that option,
Right.
so we're not holding ourselves up.
Right.
Okay, that's all I had, sir.
Okay. Council President,
Nothing from me, thank you.
nothing from you, okay. Not allowed to say anything about the Kansas City Chiefs game score, huh?
I
I
wouldn't.
think it ended before this meeting started, but I won't do it. Some people here might have recorded it, so I'll leave it be. I'll leave it be. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. We got a lot done tonight. Looking forward to seeing how the bids come back for the bond sale. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion Melton, second Gorsuch, that we adjourn. No, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned.
I'm so shocked.